Hello everyone, I'm coming live to do the training for February in the Business Intuition Academy. So I'm going to wait just a few seconds first to find myself in the group to make sure I've gone live and see if anybody wants to join. I can see myself now. And I have taken some notes, so I'm going to follow my notes a little bit. But of course, if you want to ask me any questions, then you're welcome to pop them below. Hi, Chantal. So nice to see you. So, Chantal, you're going to smile because I've decided to use as example of a niche, something that might be quite close to you. But not just you, so you'll see. Anyway, who else is watching? I can see 2 people watching right now. And for those of you who watch the replay, maybe forward by a couple of seconds when I start to get into the meat of the subject, which won't be long. So first I thought it would be really important. Hi, Annie. Really important to define what a niche is and what it isn't, okay? And then I'll give you some examples. And because very often people are not actually that clear on what a niche is. And it took me a long time for me to embrace the idea of niche and even to niche my own business, and it's still an ongoing process. So this is my definition of a niche. It's a defined group of people who have a common problem that you can resolve and who pertains to a gender, a professional category, an age group, and an experience. Okay, but I'm going to illustrate in a minute what exactly is a niche with really practical examples. Okay, but what it is not is mums, women over 40, menopausal women, women without children. This is all too vague. And I will show you, I think with the example, it's going to become very, very clear because they all have different, your niche has a very specific problem you want to speak to that you have a solution for. Now, who needs a niche? Because sometimes people ask me, well, why would I need? And I never heard about niching until I went into the online space. And that's because in the in-person business world, niching is not as important. I'm not going to say that it's not important. It's not as important. And the reason that it's not as important is that you have different ways of accessing your clients through networking, maybe in person, through referrals, through going to conferences, all that sort of thing. But for online businesses, of course, now there's a lot of online conferences and an online networking and all that due to COVID. But traditionally, before COVID, it was a very different play field. So niching online is super important because what you're doing is you're trying to speak to your ideal client through your social media posts, through your blogs, through maybe your podcast episodes. But if you speak to everyone, you speak to no one, okay? The other reason why you might want to niche, even if you have an in-person business, is because when you niche, you're able to charge more. And one of my mentors, Ellen Pritchard, shared an example of before she went online. She was a reflexologist, I think, and she specialized in fertility. Now she could charge a lot more by niching for fertility, which is a broad niche here, but for reflexologists, it's, some reflexologists say they can help anyone. I myself, when I started my practice as a clinical hypnotherapist, specialized in weight loss at one point because I wrote a book about it and everything. And it's always good to niche because you can charge more than your peers. And in the in-person business world, it's often difficult to charge more than your peers if you don't have something that distinguishes you. Does that make sense? So I'd love to have your feedback on that part of the start of the training. So let's use an example of different niches, and then we'll get on to the part of how to choose your niche intuitively. So I have Chantal and Annie on the call today, but obviously everybody else who will join the Academy and watch it on the replay. So for a yoga teacher, how could you niche? You could niche for children, for example, or you could niche for people who have specific back problems, or there's pregnancy specialty. But these online won't work either. You really want to be more specific. So I'm gonna, Chantal's example, I think, really speaks to me in the way that it's a very good one. So women without children is too vague, because if you think about it, if you have women without children in their 20s, in their 50s, in their 70s, it's already something completely different. It's a completely different ball game. You can think it right away, you can see that. But it could be, there's already two options as well. It could be that they don't have kids and all their friends are having babies. They're in their 20s, everybody around them are starting to have babies and they don't want children. Hi, Isabel. So they're feeling isolated from the rest, and maybe people are not inviting them to their parties anymore. That's what happened to my sister. When her parents started to get married and have kids and she didn't, she was single, she was singled out. She wasn't invited to parties, and that broke my heart. I thought that was really cruel, actually. So that's the dynamic that can happen in the 20s. It could be that you don't have kids because you haven't found the right partner, but it could also be because you don't want children. So already these are two completely different scenario. Now, yes, perimenopause is a good, but again, you want to find something even more specific than that. So my screen has gone to sleep. Just give me 2 seconds so I can see the comments. So now let's, so if they're in their 20s and they know they don't want kids, it could be for different reasons. It could be that they've had trauma. It could be that they know they can't have them. So that's a different dynamic. Now let's look at women without children in their 50s. Again, it's a very different thing if they wanted some or if they didn't. If they didn't, the dynamic is completely different. They just feel more and more isolated. Maybe the pressure from other people is strong. People are making judgments about them and that's weighing on them. But if they wanted, some of them can still have the hope, and some of them don't because they're already menopausal. So even in their 50s, you have two completely different categories. And then in their 70s, I think most of it is going to be about who is going to look after me. That becomes more and more pressing. So you can see that even with women without children, you have probably 10, if not more, niches, because it depends where you catch them, at what time, at what point, what are they experiencing, what is their biggest pain point at the moment. And it could be that they don't have children because their partner or their husband don't want to have children, but they do. So what do? This is a completely different dynamic. If you specialize enough at that point, that means that the people that you speak to will really say, that's me, I need her help. She's the right person for me. Let me see if Annie says something. Yes, this is about paring down, and then paring down again in the context of the online world. Absolutely. And I resisted niching for 4 years, and I paid a high price for that because I was too afraid to niche, because I knew I could help everyone. And this is going to be the second part of this mini training, is that it's absolutely normal to have that fear of niching, because you think, well, actually, I'm going to speak to a smaller audience. That means that less people are going to buy from me. But the opposite is true, because the more specific you are, the more when people see your post, they know that you speak to them, and that's really important. So there's a lot of mindset work that needs to happen when you do your niching. You need to look into your your fears and how to release them. Chantal says that is why I find it so hard to pare down so far. Okay.